Welcome to another episode of Meal Prep Monday. I'm your host, Allison Schaaf, and today I'm talking about temporary kitchens. These would be used anytime you need to set up a kitchen other than your primary one. For example, going through renovations, or if you have some equipment that's down in your kitchen and you need to set up a temporary situation to make sure you're still getting meals on the table throughout your days and weeks. Okay, before getting into the episode, a reminder that if you have not tried our meal prep meal plans, you can head to prepdish.com/MPM. That's short for Meal Prep Monday. You can try out the service for 2 weeks. And what are we going to send you with these meal plans? You'll get an organized grocery list. We'll tell you exactly what to buy at the grocery store, and then detailed instructions on how to prep ahead your meals. So how to spend an hour or two in your kitchen getting all the work done ahead of time. And then that way throughout the week, you'll just have simple, easy instructions on how to get food on the table each night at dinner so you can enjoy healthy, tasty, and more importantly, quick and easy meals every night of the week. Again, that's prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. So you can just try it out for 2 weeks for free, see if it's a fit for you. Okay, so if you've been listening to a few of the episodes on the house renovation, you know we went just recently went through a kitchen renovation, and in doing so, I have some lessons learned. And one thing that, well, kind of two, these both kind of go hand in hand with this episode. Two things I wish I would have done sooner and kind of at all with the one is, so number one thing I wish I would have done a better job of was freezer meals. I just simply didn't make it a priority, ran out of time, whatever it is. I also think I was a little maybe naive and like, okay, how long it was going to take to get through the renovations, which, you know, I know is kind of the classic mistake everyone going through renovations makes, but I do wish I would have had more freezer meals done. And this is something at Prep Dish. We have entire meal plans devoted to freezer meals. So I can link some of those resources in the show notes, but you know, I actually am usually pretty good about doing that for different things, whether it's like new baby or just know I'm going into a busy season. I love to have my freezer stocked with meals. So with the renovation, I really wish I would have done more of that. It would have been so easy to just stick a meal from the freezer into like a crock pot or an Instant Pot, which is the way we do most of our freezer meals at Prep Dish, or a lot of them. So I wish I would have done that. But if you are headed into a kitchen renovation, that's something I recommend doing in advance if you can. And then the second piece that I eventually did, but I didn't do right away, and that was to set up a temporary kitchen. You know, in the beginning, I think we're like, oh, we'll just kind of like make it work. And so we were like going into the part of the kitchen we could access and kind of making meals and figuring out how to make them. And finally, after a week or two of doing this, well, we did go to an Airbnb for a week or two of the renovations, and then we're traveling during a few weeks of them, which, you know, is also kind of Airbnb situations. So, you know, those are their own sort of kind of temporary kitchen renovations that I might do an episode on. Because the one Airbnb that was close by, I actually took a lot of my own, because we were driving, I took a lot of kitchen supplies. So because a lot of Airbnbs are just not equipped to do heavy duty cooking in. So things like, you know, my nice knife, a cutting board, and a few key pots and pans anyway. But for this, you know, this is a kitchen we set up within our home. Really, the things to think about if you are, and it wouldn't have to be a renovation too. It's just like anytime you're not going to have access to your kitchen. So maybe they're working on a stove or an oven, or, you know, doing repairs of some sort, and you can't access your kitchen. Then you might, if you think it's going to be any more than a few days, you might want to set up a temporary kitchen just so that way if whatever it is goes on longer than you're expecting, you're not annoyed or frustrated. You already kind of have a situation that's working while you need it to work. So what to look at first is, you know, what are you losing access to? Because throughout ours, there were times when I still had access to the oven and stovetop, but there were times when I didn't. And that's where it really kind of threw me for a loop, because for a while I could access them. And then when I couldn't, that's when I kind of had to scramble. So the oven, the stovetop, and the sink. So the sink we didn't have access to because we took out the sink. So that was one we didn't have access to the whole time. But those are the things you want to think about. How can you access them? With ours, we always could get to our refrigerator. If that's something that you won't have, I would recommend looking into some sort of temporary situation there, whether it's, you know, even getting like a mini fridge or something that's in a dorm, or maybe someone has one you could borrow, something like that. But, that's kind of another key piece that luckily we were able to access, like our fridge and our pantry, so that I didn't have to like reinvent the wheel on. But the oven and stovetop and sink were things I did have to think through. So what we ended up doing is setting up a separate thing of shelving that was more in our dining room and had things like the bowls, the plates, the silverware in there. So we weren't always having, because we had a black tarp up. We also did some remediation for some mold, and that meant there was a black tarp up for a lot of this. And while we could technically access things, like getting in and out and in between the black tarp was really time intensive. So setting up this temporary station, again, just ended up making sense. So we set up shelves in the dining room and put everything that we kind of was necessary, right? Plates, silverware, bowls, cooking utensils didn't need to be as kind of extensive because we were doing more basic, easy things. But, cutting board, knife, those sort of things. And even some pantry items, because to get to the pantry was cumbersome. So some of those pantry items that we use on a regular basis, like oatmeal or, salt and pepper, things like that we use regularly, like having those all out as well. And just setting those up on a shelf. So like kind of, everything has a place. We knew how to access it. And then in terms of the cooking itself, things that came in really handy. I forgot I had this, but I have like one of those plug-in griddles that a lot of people use for like pancakes. I had one of those, and those are pretty inexpensive to buy. I want to say, anyway, I don't know the price off the top of my head, but I remember them being very inexpensive. So that would be a great thing that if you're going through this, you could purchase, because we use that for a lot of things, whether it was, cooking hamburgers or, yes, you could make pancakes, but really anything you would use in like a pan on the stovetop, you could kind of do on that griddle. So that was a good one that we set up and used a lot. And then rice cooker, I will link an episode if you want to know more on using a rice cooker and all the things you can use it for. I've done a whole episode just on that. But this is a time when you really might want to use that, because if you don't have a stovetop, the rice cooker is great for more than just cooking rice, oatmeal, quinoa, other grains. It was really came in handy having that. And then, of course, the Instant Pot and slow cooker, like those are two things that you can do without having access to your kitchen. And then the other piece, so that's kind of those cooking things that I relied on. And then having a good sink. And this is where it's kind of nearby, but we have a big kind of utility sink in our shop area. And so we just kind of set that up as the dishwashing station. And we had a bucket in there. We had the brush, the soap, and then there was a whole table next to it. And we could put towels on there and we could dry everything. And I know for something like this, a lot of times, you could do, paper plates or disposable plates and silverware and all of that. I have never used paper plates or disposable silverware. I feel like I enjoy my meals more when it's on real plates and silverware. And of course, from an environmental perspective, it's really hard for me to just always, throw those away. I'm sure I'm wasteful in plenty of places, but that's just one where I'd like to use the real thing. And so we did stick with that throughout the renovations. That meant a lot of hand washing of items. Of course, brought me back to my years in college and all that. I think it was several years before I actually had a dishwasher in an apartment. I was on the East Coast for several years of my education, and dishwasher was not a given for many years. So, we survived just fine doing our dishes, and it's going to make me appreciate the new kitchen and the two dishwashers that I'm going to have even more. So, but having that sink set up and having it kind of be dedicated and have everything we needed right there just made it more efficient, where we could go in and get everything washed and put away and just function a little more like you had a regular kitchen. Okay, so those are my tips and ideas. And again, I hope you find this helpful, even if it's not a renovation, but just some situation where you are not going to have access to your kitchen. I think it's important to try and set up a system as early as possible. I feel like early on I didn't do that, and having those systems in place are just going to help you get through what can be kind of a disorienting time, being off kind of your schedule and your system. So hopefully some of these tips and ideas are helpful for you. That's all I have for today. If you are a longtime listener of this podcast and you have not left a rating or review, I would so appreciate it if you would do that. That just helps other people to find our podcast and get the word out about Meal Prep Monday. And then again, if you haven't tried our meal plans, I would invite you to do so for 2 weeks for free by heading to prepdish.com/MPM. That's short for Meal Prep Monday, and you can get a 2-week free trial. Or if it's easier for you, I also have a number that you can text. So you can text the number 33777, and you're going to put the word meal prep, all one word, meal prep, into the typed in portion of your text. And we will ask for your email address, and I will send you a free week of our we call it our beginner's guide meal plan. So you can kind of just see how our meal plans flow. You can try it out for a week, see if it's something that might be helpful further down the road. So again, there's 2 options there in terms of trying us out for free. Okay, that's all I have for this week. I will be back again next Monday.